All right, so most of you know that I swear too much, so I thought today might be a good day to take a moment to reflect back on the F word. But this F word that we're going to talk about today is about focus. And some of you kind of remember from before, I had the hour of power, I think we called it, or the golden hour, right? The golden hour of prospecting. This idea of like shutting things down for an hour where you specifically avoid all of the focuses. And I haven't talked about this for a while, and I know I need it. For example, I came up with the idea to make this video and to talk about this, I don't know, hours ago. And since that time, I've gone to the bathroom twice, I've vacuumed, I've made lunch for the kids, I fought with the kids, I've had a text conversation, I probably played a game on my phone. There has been a million other things that have popped up that have been delaying and nearly preventing me from making this simple video about focus. And I think we all know how important focus actually is, but there's a story of this idea that like Bill Gates, you know, everybody knows Bill Gates, and he was wildly successful, became the richest man in the world. Second richest man in the world was Warren Buffett, and neither one of them really kind of wanted to meet each other, ironically enough. But Bill Gates' mother decided that, you know what, I think these two people should meet and come together whether they want to or not. So Bill Gates' mom invited both Warren and Bill over to the house for a dinner and made dinner for everybody. And it's so funny because you think of how powerful these people are, and yet their parents are still kind of influencing their lives. And so they have them over to dinner, and they're eating dinner, and the dad stops, gives them each a piece of paper, and says, I want you both to write down what is the one thing that you contribute to all of your success. At the time, number one and number two most wealthy people in the world. So they wrote them down, turned them over, and passed them in to Dad. And Dad turned them over, and literally both of them wrote one word. And that word was focus. And in today's world, and my world, I'm not making this video for anybody specific, but probably myself. And if I struggle with something, I'm sure everybody else does as well. I may take it to an extreme sometimes. But focus in today's world, I think for all of us, is a big issue. And there's a few things that are kind of like the enemy of focus. Three things we came up with that were the enemy of focus. Number one, distraction. There are so many different things in our world, in our lives, to be distracted about. Number two, multitasking. I think we can all be kind of guilty of it. Whether it's on the phone, whether it's going over through here, we're always doing, how many things can I do at one single time? Some of us are more guilty of this than others at times. And the third thing, being drift. You skip out on one thing. It's almost easiest thing to equate this to sometimes is the idea of working out, right? Like you're in a workout routine, and then all of a sudden, I'll miss today. And then I'll miss tomorrow. And then before you know it, you look back, you haven't worked out in weeks, you're pounds overweight, etc. And we can do the same thing with any aspect of our jobs as well. So personal and professional. And again, I always want personal and professional development. It's on our core values for a reason. I want to continue to lift myself up and elevate myself professionally and personally. And I want to encourage you guys to do the same as well. When we think about what our purpose as a company is, I talk all the time, we're about providing solutions for people, whether that's buyers, sellers, contractors, whatever portion of our job, we're providing solutions. And sometimes we come up with, we find ourselves in very kind of tricky situations where the problems are complex, and there's something that we really have to creatively do to find an answer or solution to the problem. Heather in finance is constantly coming up with creative solutions to kind of move things around and figure stuff out. And to be able to come up with solutions to our problems and to other people's problems, that's really a creative process that only happens when we're actually able to focus in. And our focus is a lot easier, and some may argue you can only focus if you're in a clean and quiet environment. And I know for myself that sometimes is a very difficult thing to find myself in. I tend to be scattered with papers kind of everywhere, and with 3 kids running around and a dog barking half the time, finding a quiet environment is a very difficult thing. I don't know where they even are, but I actually just invested in a pair of noise-canceling headphones, which is a little helpful in helping to kind of create that more quiet environment. But, ways to kind of combat this. One of the things that I love about Ezra is every time I talk about something in the acquisitions things, Ezra's always raised his hand. All right, Sounds good. How do we implement that? How do we go about implementation of this? And so it's one thing to talk, it's another thing to do. And that's really the matter of success, right? Really, I mean, we're talking about focus for success, but also just taking action on something. We can sit in class and learn about stuff all day long, but it's how you implement it that's going to decide whether you're actually successful or not. So 3 things that we kind of have, are just paying attention to anything that's the enemy of focus, right? Anything that's working towards a distraction, anything that is pushing us towards multitasking at the same time, and being cognizant of those periods where we're drifting, especially now, in this whole COVID type scenario, everybody kind of working from home. I think it's been really easy for a lot of people, and I'm not picking on anybody. This is just my general comments about the world. It's been very easy for people to kind of like hole themselves up into their own world and take shortcuts and stop doing some of the things. It's happened to me in a lot of different areas. So being careful about anything that's talking about drift or that's pushing us towards this drift of avoidance of one shortcut step. And I'm just not going to do that today. Maybe I'll do it later. With this, so 3 things that we were coming up with: mind dump, organization into how to do things into like different categories, like what's now, what's soon, what's later, and the idea of power hours. Again, I kind of talked about it in the beginning of the call. I used to have these little golden hour prospecting things. We actually put them in little frames. And that was a long time ago, so probably everybody doesn't have one. They surely probably don't have one at home. So I'm going to include this. I'll put a little link to a power hour session. And do not disturb. This one is printed out from Brian Buffini. You've heard about me talk about him. He has an awesome podcast. A lot of mindset, motivational stuff. He's a retail real estate guy, so it's not necessarily teaching you all the aspects of the investment world, but does so much on mindset and motivation that it's hugely important, I think, for everybody if you wanted to listen. But getting into these power hours. So the idea of a brain dump. So let me back up one step. There's a million different ways that you could try to get organized. There's different planners. There's the Pomodoro effect. There's a million different things. And they're all so good. Really, which one is going to work the best is the one that you're actually going to implement. I've spent hours creating new schedules and all these different things. And there's a lot of similarities behind them all. Flip Hacking Live, I'm excited. Nina is going to be there, and she is a productivity expert. And so I'll touch on some things now, but for those of you that are actually going to attend the Flip Hacking Live sessions with us, I'm excited to hear what Nina's got to say, and her presentation is sure to be powerful. I know she's a big one for mind dumps, right? There's this statement that the mind is meant for creating ideas, but not for holding them. And so mind dump, like rather than keep all this stuff up in your head that you constantly feel like you have to juggle, to actually write them down. I don't have my bag with me, but some of you will see me carry the the erasable notebook. That's been huge for me as well. And you see me kind of scribble in the middle of meetings or all that kind of stuff, because like an idea will come to me and I know it's going to be gone, right? And I want to be able to focus in, like if somebody else is talking, I want to be able to focus in on what you're saying, not just rehearsing the same idea that I have in my head, so that when it's my turn to talk, I regurgitate whatever I've just ruminated in my head for the last 30 minutes. Like, no, I want to get it down on paper so I don't forget it. If it's still pertinent, when I have a chance to talk, I'll throw it out there. But meanwhile, I want to be able to focus in what other people are talking about and spend my energy on that rather than just spend my energy on keeping things in my head. It's so easy to get them down. A lot of people will talk about doing brain dumps on Sunday, planning for the week. What are the things that I'm thinking about? What are the things that I need to get done? Put it all down, and then you can start to schedule it, whether that's a now, soon, later, however that's going to work in terms of how your scheduling habits go. And, while we're talking about schedules, this other thought that I had is the idea of not prioritizing just what's on our schedule, but actually scheduling what our priorities should be. And this is what I like. We just went through our end of our quarter, right? So we started to be able to plan things out. We put these big rocks out there, things that we think are going to take 90 days to complete. And then you wind up having these sub-tasks that come out in like weekly goals. And then those weekly goals individually can get brought down into daily goals. What am I hoping to do over the next quarter? What do I need to do every week to get that done? And what do I need to do every day to get that done? And time blocking, something I'd like to get better at myself, really kind of helps with focus, where it says, in this time block, this is what I'm going to be able to focus on. Our meetings have been helpful because that is like I'm going to come into a meeting, I'm going to be in a meeting with you, and that's what I'm going to focus on. But also, what we should be doing is taking those daily, weekly, monthly tasks and putting those onto our calendars to time block those in. I want to investigate a new market, time block that in. Tuesday between 10 and 11, I'm doing nothing but researching that other thing. And sometimes, this will go into the order of conversation matrix that we've talked about before. If there's an emergency, something's on fire, you got to call. If it's pretty urgent, like, looks like it's smoldering over here, maybe you got to text. And then Skype is a great communication tool, but because there's so much of the conversation, if I'm in the middle of that time block, I'm going to turn the phone, I'm going to turn it right over so that I'm not distracted and multitasking into Skype. Not that that's not important, because I do, and I'm going to continue to encourage Skype conversation for a lot of different reasons, especially with us being virtual right now. We need to have that as part of our relationship, number one. Number two, I push for a lot of group communication because I feel like we all need to know what's going on, most of the time. There's some times when you don't need to know, but when I think about where I want this business to go and how I want us to operate as a team, I think of, the research studies that they've done on like hive bees, that they like literally just move together. And there's not a whole lot of communication seemingly between them that we know of, but that they move as one unit. And in order for us to move as one unit, you got to know what the left hand and the right hand are doing, right? And so that's why I push a lot of stuff for group, conversation, especially like with the acquisitions team. Oftentimes, probably 3 people have the same question. So rather than just answer to one person, elevate that one person, let's elevate the whole team. Or, you know what? Maybe 2 other people have something else to say about that that's more important, more relevant, and better than what I have to say about it. And so we elevate each other up. But anyways, getting into that prioritization of putting those things onto your schedule, working in through the time blocks. And the little things matter. I made a video a couple weeks ago about the little things that matter. And there was, I got to read this one out. There's a quote, and it's been redone a bunch of different times. But the idea of, for the want of a nail, the shoe was lost. For the want of a shoe, the horse was lost. For the want of a horse, the rider was lost. For the want of a rider, the battle or the message was lost. Then the battle was lost. For the want of a battle, the kingdom was lost. And all for the want of a horseshoe nail. So the idea of like this one little portion of this grand scheme spectrum is just the damn nail that went into the shoe of the horse, and the whole kingdom was lost. Like the little things matter. The little things are important. Compound Effect is another book that I'm probably going to talk about at some point down the road. I'm actually going to get my kids into that book. The Compound Effect, it says like all these little things add up to be something grand and huge. So I think it's important. We win life one day at a time. We can help with that with 1 hour at a time, going back into the Power Hour session. So hopefully this is helpful. Hopefully this is somewhat focused. I know my head goes 1,000 different ways, and so hopefully it wasn't too much all over the place. But the power focus, it's huge. I'm trying to improve myself on it. I encourage you guys to kind of take a look at your stuff with it. Anything I can do to help. I'm thinking about putting these so that I can put them up on my window so that anybody knows when I'm at home, if I really need to focus in on something, like you see this on the door, it darn well be able to be an emergency before you break into this door. And again, and it's not just to be more productive at work either, right? There's this idea of balance. I feel like, I could go on for half an hour, so I should be quiet. But the idea of balance is an active process, and we tend to be more out of balance one way or the other. But what I really found is that by shutting things down, by shutting other people out, it actually allows me to have better relationships with them. So instead of me spending 18 hours a day trying to battle work and life at the same time, if I can shut the kids out while I'm focused on this, then I can have the focus time that I just have with them. And it's so much more. I tell them all the time, it's about quality of time, not just quantity of time. But anyways, so there's my little tidbit on focus. Hope that's helpful. I'm excited. Like I said, Flip Hacking Live reminder coming up this week. I'm excited to kind of sit with you guys through all that. There's so much information that goes through there that's good, like real estate information, good investment information, but a lot of just good general mindset and motivation stuff. So thanks for listening. I know this was a long one, and I'll see you guys soon.